As your professor mentioned, I'll be doing something a little bit new today, sharing a little bit more about how to incorporate AI and ChatGPT into your professional writing. So that's also very new for me in terms of the presenting aspect of it. So we'll be problem solving this very much together and exploring this as a resource for you to use as a professional development. Let me go to there, away. All right, can you now see it?
Yes.
Perfect. So we're talking about cover letters and thank you letter today. So if you have not sent a thank you letter to your employers that you met after the career fair, if you're genuinely interested in that, today is the day to do that. You have to do that. It's very vital and very important. You want to communicate your interest in them. As I mentioned many times before, it's not just about turning in and submitting a perfect resume application anymore. You have to do some extras. And so these are one of the extras to let you know, communicate that you're interested in the company. But please, 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 if you have not done it yet, today is the day to do that. So as of before, I'll have y'all scan this QR code so that I can get y'all signed in for this presentation. I'll give y'all a minute to do that. All right. Move on. All right, so what is a cover letter? Purpose of the cover letter is to introduce yourself to the employer. It helps you to showcase your experiences, your skills. Why is it you're interested in this company? It's going to be no longer than a page long, but technically half a page of text is going to be the length of your cover letter. So the other components of your cover letter is more formal letter writing components. So you'll have your header, your name, the company's name, their information, your conclusion, your intro. So really it comes down to, yes, it's only one page, but half the page is only full of text. So here's a good example of that, but similar to your resume, formatting guidelines, you want to keep it very simple, very standard, very default settings. Um, Nothing too crazy, nothing too wild. If you want to just actually mimic your format of your resume, it'd be great. In fact, if you want, versus the header that's here on the example, if you want to just copy and paste your header that you have on your resume, you can do that. It shows your good attention to detail, and employers do like that. We'll go through some examples of cover letters too as well throughout the presentation. So where to begin? I mentioned you need to have mentioned the why this company, why this position, why you're interested in applying for them. A great place to start to look at the company's mission statement. What are the values? What's their vision? What is kind of resonating with you as aligning with your own professional development, your own goals? So that's a great way to start to pull in that content for your cover letter. Now, I know you've always heard don't plagiarize, don't plagiarize, don't plagiarize. And that's very much of a rule. However, when it comes to your cover letter, if you copy and paste the mission statement or even some areas that you're resonating with in your for the company into your cover letter, that's actually something that's positive. They want to see why you are really genuinely interested in the company. So I've actually always encouraged students to copy and paste those verbatim components from the company's website into your cover letter, but mention why it resonates with you. Why are you talking about the specific component with the mission statement or the vision statement? But anywhere else, do not plagiarize. Do not give you permission to do that. But really for cover letter writing, they do like that. In fact, when it comes to also ATS systems, they'll see why you want to know, like why you want to work with them. And so they want to see that language kind of mimicked in your writing. Some other areas to do that, you can do it from like OOH, ONET. I'm not sure if you covered those resources yet, but ONET and OOH are different resources do like in-depth company, employer, industry research. Glassdoor is also really great to use as well as Handshake. So understanding the job description. First and foremost, why you're applying for them. Um, Understanding why you want to work for them is really important. In fact, that's going to be like the nexus of your cover letter. But thoroughly reading the job description and the company, understand what they do, the work, it's going to be a great way to understand that because you have to make a connection for that when you're in your writing. Uh, don't forget to mention your technical skills and your hard skills. So your soft skills, those transferable skills are going to be valuable no matter what work you do in any industry. But also mention your technical skills, those hard skills. Those are going to be very specific to the work you're doing. Those are helpful to mention, but know that they're not going to be the end all be all because technical skills can be taught, right? Soft skills, transferable skills are learned over a lifetime. Just in your cover letter, I think the next slide or two may have an example of the format of what comes to cover letter. But make sure you have your contact information. So I mentioned your header. You can just copy and paste your header into your cover letter. Keeps it very similar to all your documents. You mentioned individual's name, their title, and their contact information. So who are you writing to? Now, you always want to try to get a name. Please try to get a name to who you're addressing cover letter, because at the end of the day, there's one person who's reading that cover letter. It may be the HR manager, it may be the person who's hiring for the position, but at the end of the day, it's going to be one person. So she's going to be really reviewing all these documents and reviewing who the potential candidates can be, either a person or even a team or a group of individuals. So the options I have down here at the bottom of the slide give you, in case of you're not able to find a name, this is your last resort. Last resort. You can always find a name by doing some additional research. You can find the posting, who's the name or the name attached to the job posting. If there's no name, then I say call the HR department. Every HR department will have a person connected to that specific job. Give them a job number. Every posting has a job number. What's that job ID number? Ask them, hey, I'd like to get the contact information for the hiring manager for job ID number blank, blank, blank. They'll be able to give that to you, but you have to do the extra step to call and find out. If at the last resort, say step number 3, you're not able to get that name or information, they're not willing to give that out, which is really, really rare, then at that point, use the default Dear Hiring Manager. But you want to do due diligence first because one, it's just possibly on you that you've done the extra work to find out who this person is. So here's some examples of your header. Again, you have your confirmation at the very top, the date of when you submit to your cover letter, not the date of when you write it, but the date of you submission the cover letter. Then their contact information. And then their greeting, dear Miss Powers. If they hold a terminal degree within their field, of course, you always default to doctor. Now, you may not know that right away if you haven't done the kind of finding out who they are, which again, benefits of finding out who this person is right here, example right here when it comes to greeting. You can look at their LinkedIn, again, see how they're being addressed from the company if you're calling for their contact information. But if you are unsure whether they hold a degree or not, always default to doctor. You'd rather have the higher level title versus lower. So it's not offensive if you call someone doctor and they don't have a doctorate, but it is offensive if you don't call them a doctor and they do have a doctorate. Any questions about that so far? The color content. This was a little bit lengthy. I would say yours is not going to be as long as this example here, but you can show again kind of just different ideas that we can do. I say for most students in this room, you'll have your first paragraph and maybe second paragraph. You probably won't have a third paragraph, and then you'll have your conclusion. So for a lot of people, you have a lot of experience. I think it's going to be called for to have another additional paragraph in there. But for most students in this class, you won't have such a long cover letter. This is between 3 to 5 paragraphs. Again, talk about your interest in the position. Why are you wanting to work for them? Why are you wanting to work in this specific role? You can pull that information from the mission statement, vision, all these different areas, or the About Us section of any company website. Mention the fit, the qualifications. What are you bringing to the table? How are you going to be a standout candidate from potentially other peers? And mention your follow-up, your closing. Wrap up the kind of synopsis of your cover letter. Kind of follow the essay writing rules. You have your intro, your body conclusion, have like a strong conclusion, and then your greeting at the very end. Sincerely, don't say best or thank you, just say sincerely. And then leave a space for your name so you can sign it, and then print your name at the bottom. Under your name, this example does not have it, but under your name, you want to have the word enclosure. Enclosure is another piece of professional writing that signifies there are additional documents attached after reading the cover letter. Because in the series of documents you're submitting to the job application, your cover letter is the very first one. So by writing the word enclosure, that means, hey, there are other documents I need to look out for Clarissa, because this is only first of many. Now, I will also address the signature component. A lot of times you might not be able to add a signature because you're doing this electronically, completely okay. You can have the option of doing that by adding your signature into like a PDF when you sign documents. But if you don't and cannot do an electronic signature, that's okay. Do not worry about trying to figure that out. But you still want to leave a blank space for that signature.
And so can I piggyback on that?
Yeah,
So
please.
when you say in a blank space, it's not a space, it's actually 3 returns, maybe 4 returns. And then that way you type your name and then you can actually sign your name, or do like what that looks like where it's written in cursive, but it's been typed. And then also the other thing is I'm trying to ask that when you type up the body of the letter, we're trying to eliminate as many I's as possible. We want to focus on the company interest instead of your interest. So limit the I statements.
Yeah, definitely. We'll look through some examples of how you can do that. Transition phrases are your best friend. So if you use that or are comfortable using those transition statements or transition phrases, that'll help you to significantly reduce your I statements. Now, I'm not saying you will never have I statements in a cover letter. That's almost impossible because you are talking about yourself. But try to avoid as many as you can. And even sometimes if you reread your cover letter, have another person reread it for you, that's also helpful to like circle those I statements because you do want to reduce the amount of them you have. So here is an example of a intro paragraph. This is going to be focused on the attention and interest of why you want to work for this company. This is actually not really that great an example of I statements because it does have a few of them in there. However, a great way to look at that is, okay, well, I see 3 I statements already. How can I reduce that to maybe 1 or 2? So again, using transition phrases is going to be helpful in that. Make sure you spell everything out. Don't say USC, but say University of South Carolina. You also want to avoid using emotional language in professional writing. And what I mean by that is, for example, my passions for exploration and degree. Okay, that may be true, but try to remove the emotional component of writing in professional writing. So another example would be at the last statement. I would love to experience this. Well, that may be true again, but try to remove that love language from professional writing, love or like, passion. So replace that with other language, or if you could even remove it all together and still say the same thing. On that, let's see. I know I mentioned in resume writing using quantifiers in your resume. Still use that in this example as well. So if you want to use numericals in your cover letter, feel free to do that. Again, it's a attention drawer. So bring it into the reader. Well, what does this 50 number mean? Ooh, I want to know more. So you spell out mechanical engineering, don't abbreviate it, spell it out. Your second or third or fourth paragraph. Again, for most individuals in this room, you probably just have 2 or 3. You won't have an additional 4th one in there. But those that have a lot of experience, you may have that. It's a great way to highlight your academic accomplishments, any honors, awards you've earned or achieved. Again, especially if they're merit based, is huge. I like some of the selling points. Why would they be interested in hiring you versus someone else? What kind of things can you bring to the table? You can also maybe mention that you have your e-portfolio due as an assignment. If you have your e-portfolio is strongly crafted and created, you have great systems, easy to navigate. You can even mention that, additional access to all my works you can find here in my e-portfolio, something like that. What makes you qualified? Look at the qualifications for the job. What are they asking for in terms of skills? I will first and foremost say that deciphering a job description is half the battle, and there's not a single human on the planet of Earth who will meet every single job qualification or skill they're looking for in that job. It does not exist. So don't feel like, well, I can't apply for this. I'm not meeting everything they're asking for. That's okay. If you have at least half of qualifications that they're looking for, then go ahead and apply. I think that's still a very strong candidate. When it comes to also when I ask for preferred versus think about the word is preferred qualifications, they're saying essentially they want to have candidates in that area. So they say like minimum qualifications, blank blank blank, bachelor's degree, but they say preferred qualifications, master's degree. They're saying essentially they want candidates to have a master's degree to apply for this job. So usually it's preferred is their kind of target area, but if you have at least half the qualifications and skills they're looking for, you can definitely apply. Feel the power to apply for those jobs. Go back to this. Definitely mention, I think at the very beginning, I mentioned the position you're actually applying to. I don't think in this example I say that, but mention the job ID number. I know I mentioned that at the beginning to find out who the hiring manager is. Mention that in your cover letter itself as well. So say I mentioned applying for the blank position. In parentheses, put your job ID number. Just helps to make sure that you're talking about the correct job and they're assigning the correct position to their application. All right, so closing up the conclusion, your follow-up, the wrap-up of your cover letter, again, doesn't have to be super lengthy. This one, again, is kind of brief, but again, remove all your emotional language from professional writing. So I feel I would be a great fit for this opportunity. If you just say, I would be a great for this opportunity, you're essentially saying the same thing, but without that emotional component to it. I would love to utilize, but again, remove the word love. Thank you for your time and consideration. Mention again the position you're applying to. It's not gonna hurt you to mention that more than once. Again, your greeting, always say sincerely, nothing else. And like I said, 3 spaces for your name to sign, and then your name. I know some people even got to the length of actually signing like a handwritten document and scanning that in. I mean, it's great if you do that, if you know how to do that, but don't feel like you have to bend over backwards to do that. Do you have any questions so far? Talk about skills. So again, if you don't remember what those 8 soft skills are, here are those 8 soft skills. Make sure you're mentioning some of these. These are going to be always on every job description you apply to. Your soft skills are going to be somehow incorporating what they're looking for from the skill set. So make sure you're mentioning these. Give examples. Don't just say you're a strong communicator, but how you utilize strong communication skills. And I can't say this more or enough, but proofread, proofread, proofread. Please, please, please. We are humans, meaning that we're going to make mistakes and have edits or have errors. By having other people read a document that we've read over several times to where we're just missing things that we make mistakes ourselves. Some person who read it once, they might catch that mistake right away. So have at least one other person who's not yourself read over your cover letter, any documents submitted for a job. I know that personally one mistake I make all the time, and I may have mentioned this before, is the date of my cover letter. I always put a date there because I need to make sure I have that professional writing component included in my cover letter. But I can't tell you how many jobs I applied to where I forgot to change the date. So many. In fact, it got to a point where I was like, okay, what can I do to minimize this? So I got to the point where every job application I do or every cover letter I write, I highlight the date in highlighter yellow. That's the only thing I have a highlighter yellow, so that I know by the time I'm ready to submit my cover letter, I see that highlighter yellow, I'm like, oh, that's the date I have to change. So it's always a good visual reminder how to change that date to make sure it's the date I submit, not the date I write. So I tell you, if you make that one mistake, it matters. You can have perfect cover letter and perfect job application and perfect resume, but if you have the one mistake with this date, you're just already included as a no. So it's a hard pill to swallow when it comes to you investing all this time and effort in something, and you know right away you make a slight mistake, and you just know you're not going to get considered for it. I don't want you to have that as a barrier for yourself. We talk about I statements, we talk about grammar, double checking. Yeah, for approved, yep, perfect. Cool. All right, so we're going to switch a little bit into thank you letters. Very similar kind of component to think about, but going to be more brief. Brevity is going to be key to writing a thank you note. You don't have to have a whole page of text while you want to make sure you're mentioning some components about your interaction. I think that's huge. I'll show you how to do that in AI, but also you want to mention like what was the base of your conversation? What were some things that you talked about? Because more likely that's going to be the reason why they remember who you are. Just think of the example of career fair. They're talking to hundreds of students. I know the Amazon line was insanely long. Like I'm pretty sure they talked to like 1,000 students. I don't know how, but it was insane. So how do they going to remember who you are? What's going to help them to remember that you're a standout student? By mentioning the things you talked about in your interaction is going to be key for that. That's why taking notes after your interactions are going to be also helpful, because more likely you won't remember what we talked about over a week ago with that recruiter if you reflect on that now. So having those instantaneous notes is going to be helpful. You do want to do this within 24 hours. Again, I know I mentioned if you have not done it yet, do that today. I think today would be the latest you would do that, but we're a week out from the event. So I think it's still fair to send the thank you note, but I would say if you're not doing it today, you're not going to be considered. They also think about the timeline of other schools. They're going through recruiting other schools, other students. They're on a marathon, not a sprint. They are going through 10 other schools. They're meeting a strong pool of candidates everywhere. So you want to make sure that you're kind of always staying abreast and on top of their mind. It's a strong candidate. Mentioned that notes in here can be handwritten, but it's rare to have the opportunity to send in a handwritten note. So most likely it's going to be also electronic. So what to say? Keep it short, to the point. I'll show you again some examples and coming up slides of the length of your overall thank you note. If they say thank you note, thank you letter. Why are you again stand out person for this position? What helps you to be a strong candidate in this role or in this company? And indicate that you look forward to next steps. Always be action oriented when it comes to your communication. If you're not action oriented, they have no purpose or reason to get back to you. So why are they going to? What I mean by action oriented, meaning that you don't want to just end your thank you note. It says, thank you, and I hope to hear from you soon. But thank you for the time. I do hope to hear from you soon. What are the next steps to further my interest in the application process or further my interest with the company? Having that question at the end means that they need to get back to you. They have to respond to you because you need an answer to your question. So by having action-oriented communication means you're always going to get some kind of response. Now, there will also be 100% response rate, but you'll at least get more respondents than you would if you just left that. I look forward to hearing back from you. So again, have action-oriented responses or questions at the end of your communication to just signify a response. I know I mentioned day after interviews, again, kind of past the day after interview because we're all like a day 5 after the career fair. So, but for interviews, very different. You do want to have a 24-hour response after interviews because they are interviewing a lot of students and they're interviewing the top candidates, right? So they're at the point where they're making decisions. In fact, Say you interview on a Friday and you are the last of the bunch to interview because they've had interviews all week long, and you don't send your thank you note like that day, next day, and Monday morning they're making decisions. But say you send yours Monday afternoon, but it's well 24 hours, but they made a decision already, and now you've missed out because you haven't sent a thank you note. So be very mindful where you fall in terms of that timeline for your interviews. Just want to be very much aware of 24 hours is the maximum you want to send your thank you note. I know that some people need kind of reflection time after the interview to have like a process. That's totally okay. Draft up the, and if you wake up the next day and you're like, that's this right position for me, I want to pursue it, I'm having good feels, submit that first thing the next morning. So don't wait too long to send your thank you notes following an interview. So that comes for wrap up a little bit of the presentation component. I'm going to now switch into more of use ChatGPT. So I'll give you all everyone a second to open up your web browser and all that stuff. Let's see. I'll also say that for ChatGPT, from what I used last now, they are asking you to set up a profile. So before have not had to do that. So you will need to at least sign up with your create an email account. But again, it's free. You shouldn't have to pay for anything out of pocket. So if you like chatgpt.com, this will be kind of where you'll have to sign up for your profile. Can you still see my web browser?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you see I'm signed in. So the biggest thing with using AI is that you have to have the right prompts. I mean, I spent a couple days trying to figure out the right prompts, and I kept watching videos. It takes a little bit to get the right prompt because if you don't produce a right prompt for AI, it's not going to give you. It's going to give you nonsensical content and information. It's not going to make any sense. And it's just going to keep rambling on and on and on. So in the slide, in my PowerPoint slide, I actually do have prompts that I use to create different cover or different documents. So this is a prompt I use to create my cover letter. This is a prompt I use to create my thank you note. Thank you note is a little bit more complicated. That one is a little bit harder, and I can share more details of that. But if you want, and your professor will send this out to the class, was I'm using this as a prompt. So what I did is I have the prompt, give specifics of what I want. I made sure that I used chemical engineering internship for you, would be different type of internship. But I want to actually use real student like examples of most recent. So I actually used some of our student workers who work in our office. I said, hey, could you send me your most recent resume and a job application you have recently applied to or want to apply to? So I basically went through AI, put in this prompt. I go to IGP, so put that in. Let me see. I can move that perfect. I put the prompt in, and this is what came out. This cover letter right here. Or whatever, like this is pretty good. I'm impressed. So you may have to play around with your prompts a little bit, but this based off of what I was told. So I put that prompt. Here's what it told me back in response. Of course, let me help you compile a cover letter. So what I did is I said one, I put in copy pasted the internship details from the application, which was this. So I say position summary and duties, responsibilities, and technical skills. Remember, these are the things that they really want to know. So copy and paste this into my AI prompt. Then I went through, so see the one, and then I went through 2 to 4. I copy and pasted my resume. So I went back to my resume, which I had, and I copy and pasted 2 through 4, the resume. So those are 2 things that asked for me, or 4 things that asked for me. I pasted all that content in there, and that's what produced from my submission. Pretty cool, huh? Now I will say, please, 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 again, this is even more important than before, but please read over what's being produced. I mean, don't assume it's perfected and it's right and it's on the nose. You will have to make some edits and some changes. It's not going to be perfect. So even more so, I said, proofreading your document before, this is even more important. Because one, it could be it's you can tell if it's not from your tone of voice. I mean, that's pretty evident. And it can also tell if there's slight mistakes. So if you're submitting that for an assignment, your professor's going to know immediately. This was not something you worked on yourself that has your finesse to it. They can tell you just kind of did as a quick fix. So just make sure you're doing that. I think it's good ethical practices, and also knowing the basis and foundation of how to create a cover letter will help you to make this even more refined, because AI is not perfect right now. So it's just a tool to help you to get to that place. I don't know, Professor, if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, let me follow up on that. So what he's done is actually laid out exactly sort of what I'm looking for, where you look for the job description, you look for the need of the company. So you're taking that summary description, and then he took your technical skills, your soft skills from your resume, and he made sure all of that was in there. And then he asked ChatGPT to create a cover letter. I'm looking for not only a nice collaboration between AI and you and the job, but what I'm trying to do is to get that body of the cover letter to sort of come together, and you can see it. Like he said, you have to go back through and then tweak it so it makes sense to you, because it's just a computer creating that. But then also I'm looking at the formatting. I want to make sure that you have, the date at the top, and if you have a company that you're writing to and you have a name, then you would replace the hiring manager name with the real person's name. And then at the bottom, you would still write sincerely, and then space down and type your name and so forth. So what I'm trying to do is just make it a little bit more streamlined, where the body of the paragraph ties in everything that I want, instead of you just having to come up with it. Now, if you're good at it, go ahead and do it, because you can see that even though AI did this, I still see a lot of I statements in here. And that's something that you're going to have to tweak. But it's still, he used SunCoke Energy, which is great. I don't know who they are, but he incorporated all the stuff that they needed with all of the skills and so forth. So let me share something. I'm going to show you on the fly real quick.
Can I wrap up one more
Yep,
thing real quick?
go ahead. Yeah.
I did the same thing for your thank you letter. So the only difference for the thank you letter is that you don't necessarily have a job description, but you have your notes. Again, this is why it's important to make your notes right after your career fair or your interaction with the employer. Because what I did is the same thing kind of applies. I use this as my prompt. Everything highlighted in yellow is exactly the notes from my career fair. So my student actually was super helpful in doing this for me. So they type up their notes because this is from their interaction at the career fair. You either have other notes from the career fair. How amazing is this? I copied and pasted the things that are relevant to what to mention in your thank you note, because that's going to help them remind them who you are. And then also pasted my resume. So I did that. And this was my prompts. So I did that. And what's highlighted yellow is what you change for yourself. So your notes are mentioned, and this is what produced through my thank you letter. Something is brief, not long, because it's going to be like half the text of your cover letter. But now this is going to be tailored for what you want to send to your thank you note. So this is awesome. This was what I was playing around for a few days. I did not know how to get this really tweaked right. So if you want to use the prompt that I suggested, please by all means use that, because it takes a while to get the prompt just precise. But yeah, so
And
go ahead.
that's why Nick and I are wanting you to start playing with this, because some of you say, yeah, I've done this to just search certain things, but we're going to try to use it for our work mode now. And it's going to spit out something, and it's going to say, list your name, list the title, list the person you're talking to. You got to finish it. It's not going to type it for you. I don't want an incomplete cover letter, incomplete thank you. You got to finish it, not just submit what the ChatGPT did.
Yeah,
So
I'll stop
it's just
sharing.
giving you the format, right? So I'm just going to pull up. Hang on a second. I'll pull up my entire screen here real quick. But I was thinking the same way that he was doing it. Like maybe a prompt could be as simple as create cover letter with proper formatting to Sunoco, since they were one of them, and talk about technical skills and so forth, and say these are some of the things that you want to highlight, and this is what the job search was. What you could also do is I went to here, and you can see like what he was saying, just pick up what they're looking for, the qualifications, and maybe the responsibilities, and just cut and paste, put that also into the prompt, okay? Because I wrote what's listed below, okay? So it knows it's looking for something below. And then all of a sudden, if I take all of this, and I'm just going to give it a shot, because like he said, you had to play with it, but I'm going to go into ChatGPT real quick. And I'm going to say try it, because that's the free one. So I'm going to try ChatGPT, and it says, ask me anything. I'm just going to plug that whole thing in there and say, search. And so let's see what it comes up with it down here at the bottom. And I'm just showing you how quick it comes up with something. But there it tells you, you put your name, your address, because I asked for the proper formatting. Then it puts the name of Sunoco person and their address. And this is how you do it. And then it tied in everything I talked about with networking, cybersecurity, database, project management, and all the things that they were looking for. And it came out up with that. And then you need to go through and tweak it. And then it says sincerely, and then your name and so forth. That's how quick it actually spit that out. But that's what I'm wanting you guys to understand. It gives you the body of it. And then I want you guys to go ahead and tweak it, because it incorporated it. And then you need to take out some of those I statements, because I see quite a few I statements in there. But that's what you would want to do, okay? And that's how fast it happens.
Yep.
So homework shouldn't be too hard. It's just you using it, getting used to the prompts, and then actually modifying after the fact. Okay.
Cool. Awesome.
Any other questions? Nick, anything else?
No, that's it. I'll hang around for a little bit. If you have questions, if you do have any questions, but like I said, you can definitely use my prompts, but they may not work for you. So again, you have to edit and play around with the tool. I mean, like I said, it's a tool, so it's hopefully helpful to get to that level of professional writing. But make sure you always edit and read it after.
Right. Well, thank you, Nick. I appreciate all the time and help today.
Yes.
Looks like the sun's coming out. You guys can go ahead and enjoy things. I think it said it was supposed to stop raining by noon. So, but other than that, you guys have a good spring break, and I'll see you on Friday for another remote session. And Nick said he'll stick around if you have questions.
Yeah. Have a great and safe spring break, everyone. Safe travels.
Thank you. You too.